In terms of acquiring Chinese knowledge, I just urge everyone to read as much as possible if they're planning to invest in China. In terms of like books, every year it seems like China's the most popular country in terms of how to do business in China. Also, like first-hand accounts of businessmen who went into China. Like one of the books I think is 1 Billion Customers. That was a pretty good book that I read like in the past year. Mr. China is another one. These are basically accounts of businessmen who were in China in the 1990s and into 2000. They had quite fascinating experiences. And surprisingly enough, you may actually have similar experiences, even though China is developing quite rapidly. There are still some very fundamental differences in doing business here as opposed to the West. And so obviously understanding Chinese business practices is very important. You may have heard some of these cliches, but they do have a lot of truth in them. The concept of guanxi, the concept of personal connection, relationships. Doing business in China a lot of times is basically sitting down and having banquets and dinners where you don't even discuss business for a little bit because they're considered kind of rude. A lot of Mao Tai shots, which is a pretty difficult type of liquor to take. But in many ways, you got to try to befriend these guys, and they got to know that they want to trust you and that type of thing. It's a little bit different than the West. Obviously, in the West, we want to get business done. We don't necessarily want to have dinner with these people. We just want to make a profit and have a good partnership where you can trust a partner. A little bit different in China. Organizing a team, this is kind of an obvious point. You want a team that obviously at the very least that team should probably have a few people who are bilingual, who understand China in and out. You might have to source a person in your team back in the United States, maybe an overseas Chinese who's living in the United States. That's generally a good idea. Flexibility, obviously. Flexibility and patience. I think patience is actually the #1 quality one needs when doing business in China. A lot of American businessmen or foreign businessmen we see get frustrated, openly frustrated in dealing with China. They ask us why they have to take so long in terms of registration and in terms of dealing with this agency and that agency. And we have to tell them to be very, very patient. The process will work nowadays. The Chinese are serious, obviously, about having foreign investors, but you have to just be patient with the Chinese. And they run things their way, and you just have to accept it for it being the way it is. These are basically very basic points. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to discuss I'm going to go over these 3 points, growth industries, politics 101, and common challenges. These are some of the growth industries that our firm has been coming across: travel, financial services, education, healthcare, environment and energy, which I believe one of my colleagues is going to talk about later today, and agribusiness. For me personally, I've noticed that we are starting to get a lot of financial services companies coming in, banks, brokerages. They're asking a lot about this. China is slowly but surely opening up the financial services sector to foreigners in direct result to the WTO. China actually is supposed to have opened it up 100%, but it's a little bit more of a gradual process and make investments for like high technology items like silicon chip manufacturing, that type of stuff. Chinese politics, maybe you guys probably know a little bit more about this than me. There's a debate about one-party state control. Basically, from my opinion, I think China seems like it's more run by committee, if you ask me, and it's committees with various different departmental agencies, and there's no one person in charge. These are some of the debates here. Balance between modernization and state paternalism. The iron rice bowl was a frequently used term in years past. Low-skilled workers. This is something that's starting to change. A suspicion of foreign investment in terms of in terms of regulatory framework in China. That's quickly changing. Common challenges. Basically, again, I counsel patience basically because it is a slower process than, let's say, investing in the United States or investing in Europe, which is just a set system. You have to wade through the bureaucracy. You have to gain trust with your business partners. This is a fairly new factor in the past 5 to 10 years. China, of course, used to be virgin territory, but now there is a lot of cutthroat competition. It's fairly rare to come into China with a particular product that Chinese don't have or aren't copying or have a local competitor to. This, again, is something that you guys might know a little bit more about. Obviously, China is run by the Communist Party, the state, and behind the scenes is always the military, which generally backs the party. These are the 3 types of companies that you will encounter in China. The lines between these entities are starting to be blurred between privately owned Chinese companies and state-owned enterprises. A lot of, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, most companies were state-owned enterprises and were clearly so. Now, with the privatization of most state-owned enterprises, we're starting to see a blurred line between privately owned Chinese companies and state-owned enterprises. You see this kind of intermingling where state-owned enterprise might own a stake in this, and this might own a little bit of an ownership interest in this. So the lines are starting to get a little bit blurred. What we'll probably hear a little bit more about is the fact that China joined the WTO in 2001, as you guys know. And the practical point of this is that in terms of all the regulations prior to 2001 and still ongoing process right now, is that all their laws are being overhauled. Everything from regulation of the financial services industry to all the rules that deal with foreigners investing in China, that has all been overhauled or is in the process of being overhauled. They all have, of course, have to adhere to the WTO rules, which basically allows, from a basic proposition, is that foreigners have to have an equal opportunity as the local Chinese. And that's my presentation.